Filipinos have influenced Mexican culture since the Spanish colonial period.
Yes, and vice versa. I know I should have added vice versa to the script. I didn't think about it when I was recording it. But yes, I get it.
Here's a reading recommendation.
This is Rudy Guevara's Filipinos in Nueva España, published in the Journal of Asian American Studies. From 1565 to 1815, ships known as galleons came back and forth from the port of Manila to Acapulco, Mexico.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened to me here. I had spelled it correctly, Acapulco, in my notes. I don't know why I added the extra L. My bad.
At this time, both Mexico and the Philippines were colonized by the Spanish. And during this process, many indigenous Filipinos, or Filipinos Indios, who the Spaniards often simply called Chinos, were brought to Mexico and sold as slaves. And like their African counterparts who were also brought as slaves to Mexico, many of the Filipino women and men who came to Acapulco deserted their slave masters and became runaway slaves. And many of these Filipinos blended in with the local indigenous Mexican populations. Many formed families and friendships. Check out part 2 to learn about shared food and customs. There are also words in Nahuatl that stand as a testament to Mexican and Filipino cultural interactions. Tagalog words derived from Nahuatl include atole, avocado, cacao, and camote. And Filipino words derived from Nahuatl include cacahuatl, or cacao, referring to chocolate. There's also tamales, derived from tamali, and tocayo from tocaitl. Indigenous Filipinos in New Spain also introduced tuba wine, which is popular today in Colima and Zacatula. And as early as 1619, it was popular and known as vino de cocos. Goods traded between the Philippines and Mexico during the galleon trade included pineapples, peanuts, lima beans, yams, cassavas, papayas, tomatoes, and squash. Filipinos also adopted the Mexican dish known as ceviche, and cockfighting in Mexico is said to have Philippine origins.
What about shared Filipino and Mexican history? Now, for starters, the Mexican-Filipino connection began when the Spanish Empire utilized Tlaxcalteca soldiers to conquer the Philippines. However, Guevara doesn't go into this in his articles, so this will be a discussion for a future video. Among shared cultural traditions, there are also Catholic churches in the Philippines that venerate La Virgen de Guadalupe. And according to Guevara, the camisa guayabera has designs that, quote, resembled the Filipino barong Tagalog. During the colonial period, there were also many Mexicans who traveled and lived in the Philippines and were referred to as Guachinangos. As Guevara points out, there's even a town called Mexico in the province of Pampanga. Sorry if I mispronounced that. What about Filipinos who participated in the Mexican independence movement? There was Ramon Faribe, a Filipino lieutenant of Father Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla. He was hanged by the Spanish crown along with other rebels who participated in the independence movement. The Afro-Mexican general Jose Maria Morelos had approximately 200 Filipino Mexicans who joined his armies. Now this makes sense considering that his army were formed in the state of Guerrero, which was home to many Filipinos who came to Mexico during the galleon trade. And during the independence movement on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, revolutionaries in Mexico and in the Philippines wrote messages of support to each other, encouraging them to rise up against Spain. There were also Mexican independence movement rebels, like Epigmenio Gonzalez, who were expelled to the Philippines. Some Mexicans in the Philippines, in turn, also participated in the Filipino independence movement.
So first of all, I'm not Filipino. Well, at least that is to say I don't have a direct ancestor that I can attribute to me calling myself Filipino. I am Chicano and my parents are both from Jalisco. But part of the reason that I was really inspired to do this video was because when I was living in Los Angeles, I would often get asked if I was Filipino. So I always wondered maybe they might be our distant cousins or ancestors. Like, I know I heard about Filipinos in Mexico during the colonial period, but I never learned about it myself, so I was interested in learning more. And this was one of my cousin's 23andMe DNA test results that I thought was really interesting, is that although he came out 94.6% Native American, shows here that we seem to have 0.2% Filipino ancestry. So it's nice to know that I have a blend, of course, of my indigenous features, but also some Filipino as well. And also, the point here is not to say that all Mexicans are Filipino, it's to say that there were Filipinos in Mexico, and also vice versa.